Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Cookbook. I'm your host, Iris Goldfeder, and I'm super excited about our guest today, Diane Lamb. She's super awesome, and when we're done with this podcast, you're going to think she's as awesome as I do. So I'm going to read her bio and bring her on. Diane is a scaling and operations strategist, and she is on a mission to make ops expertise accessible at every level of business so we can double the number of female-owned businesses that make it to 250K. Yes, that's what we need. Okay. She produces workshops and group programs that show her clients how to build their systems, tech, automations, and teams so they have the ops foundation and leadership skills that gets them to 250K with the freedom and flexibility to do what they love in their business and outside of it, which, I mean, that's probably more important. Okay, so with further ado, let's meet Diane.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No, I'm like so excited that you're here. And we were having this like massive conversation before, this started and about all the things. And so you like last year you were doing something else and then you decided to pivot to what you're doing now. But I don't want to get into all of that yet. I want to tell people about you, who you are, because you're like so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, wow, that's a big question, right? So where do I start? So like Iris mentioned, I am a scaling and operations expert. This is literally the only role I've ever had in my business, in my career, has always been operations facing. Like I was the right hand to a lot of financiers on Wall Street. They had ideas, they had entities they wanted to start, hedge funds they wanted to start, and I was the person that made it happen. So I launched 5 multi-million-dollar hedge funds, and I built teams for very large financial institutions. Essentially, if you had an idea, you were an executive, you were a financier, you came to me to make sure that that idea came to life. And, after slugging it out for a while in the corporate world, I was like, how could I could do this for so many people. How could I not build an empire for myself as well? And lo and behold, here we are, Online Entrepreneurship Central.
Wow. That is like so awesome. And what you do, I mean, what you did before, so you had your own business, and we'll get into that, why you left and everything later, but the business that you had before was more operations than what you're doing now, because now it's still ops, but in a different.
Yeah, it's evolved a little bit, right? So in the past, I did a lot of done-for-you work. My clients were a lot more established businesses. They were the ones who were already in the high 6s. They were the mid to high 6s. They were going to 7. They knew they were going to scale. And it was really like whether they were going to do it with me or they were going to do it with some other agency that was going to help them build their operating foundation, right? And like, don't get me wrong, I loved every single one of my clients. They were all amazing, and we had such good relationships. But after a while, it kind of started to feel like, oh, is this what I really started my business for? Where I'm working with the same, 10 to 12 type of people every year, the people who are already here, who have already kind of made it. And that's not what I actually originally envisioned for my business. So like, it was a lot of soul searching. It was a lot of like, internal turmoil, if you will, because to turn something off that is really, really lucrative, that really, really works, to do something that you're like, I'm not sure. I've never done that. I've never worked with that more early stage entrepreneur. Am I really going to let go of a sure thing? But I kind of knew.
What made you get there? Because obviously something had to happen that made you go, screw it. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of things that happened, right? The first one being, I did a lot of my own inner healing work, and I realized it's like, oh, I had more designs of being more of a teacher. I am a teacher. That's what I like to do. I like to do a lot of mentorship. When I was building teams in corporate, I wanted to teach my team how to do the thing, right? How to make the same kind of decisions that I would make so that we could all perform better. And I took that into my own business, but I was like, oh, wait a second. For whatever reason, I ended up just doing it for everyone instead of like showing them the way on their own. And I remember when I was talking to my therapist, from like one person that I met during a networking event who knew me for all of 15 minutes, literally told me that you cannot be a coach or an advisor because you tell people the answers. Do not tell them what to do, right? If you do that, you cannot do this kind of work. And I was like, whoa. Wow. Oh my God. Okay. Well, obviously, like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm a little bit of like ashamed of myself for throwing around concepts and words that I don't know. And like, I literally gave that person all of my power because I heard that in my head. Like, I was like, oh, obviously I can't have like a teaching or a mentorship type business because like, I'm not certified. I'm not that person. So let me just focus on the agency side of things. And I literally had that in my head for like 4 years. Like that kept me from building the business that I actually wanted for a really, really long time. So it was a lot of healing work to get to that point where I'm like, wait a second, why am I not doing the thing that I actually want to do? Why am I like saying 5 years from now, I'll do it? Like, what am I waiting for? And that was kind of the core memory that I had. I'm like, oh yeah, because like I couldn't do it. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a mentor. I'm not a coach. How could I have that kind of business? But in reality, that's not true, right? Like, so it was a very big aha moment. That was kind of the beginning of the transition.
Yeah. And those aha moments I think that's where we grow from, right? Because it's kind of like like I think for me last year when I, retook this over and was like, well, what am I going to do? I had my aha moment and it was the same thing. I had people in my ear for years telling me, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing this. And I listened to them. And when I stopped listening to them was when all the pieces started falling in place. And it's like but for somebody to tell you that you shouldn't be and we had this conversation. Somebody told me, be less me. And that was a coach. Yeah. So, it's like maybe that person shouldn't have been telling you that, but I'm glad that you were able to do, recognize and do that inner work because that's hard. The inner work piece, I was talking about that with Jess Sato the other day. That is so hard. But we have to like hold up the mirror and then start looking inward because that's when all the kind of shit comes out and you're like, okay, I got to kind of clean this out. I got to do this and I have to heal here and I have to, do this. But it gets us where we need to be. So
yeah, it's definitely the harder work, right? Because it's like, there's never this is done. This is the answer. I've finished it. I'm ready to move on. Right. And so it's like, it is some of the harder work, but also like the piece where I'm like, oh, I'm glad that I made the transition. I'm glad that I have this self-awareness because I can carry it into other parts of my business in the way that I'm operating and interacting with other people. Now, how I'm building my team, the things that I say yes and no to all go through this different filter now that I see myself and my business very differently. So I guess, in the long run, like it all kind of works out.
Right. Right. And when you look at it from, through a different lens, right? You've been looking at it through this one lens for so long. And all of a sudden it's like, you go to the optometrist and they're like, okay, look through this lens. And how does this look? And it looks totally different. And to me, that was one of the coolest things was when I was able to really look at it differently and then look at myself differently.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, it was like, because I was just like a, little web company that we did websites, we did SEO, we did all the things, and now we're like this all-in-one marketing solutions thing. And, I'm heading it and it kind of blows my mind sometimes. I'm like, wow, I was talking to Heather, my wife last night. I said, remember like 2 years ago when we were looking at this and you were like, yeah, you may have to get a job soon, It's like, I'm completely unemployable. So that, wasn't going to work. But, to be able to look at that and then see, where I am today is just like, it's amazing. And the way that I look at things now, I do not look at things the same as I did before.
Yeah, entrepreneurship will do that to you. It will definitely clarify some things, and you'll like maybe let go of things that you thought you really, really needed along the way. If somebody actually told me this when I was kind of starting off my entrepreneurial journey and I didn't understand it, where they said that entrepreneurship can be its own form of therapy if you let it be. And I'm like, okay, whatever. It didn't land at the time. And then it did, right? And then when it did, it was like, oh, I just got hit by a car.
Right. Because it made sense. I know they say, what's the saying? Entrepreneurship is like the best form of self-awareness or something like that, you'll ever get, because you have to face it. It's not, when you're working for a company, when you're doing all that, it's easy to not have to do the hard work because you're just working for somebody, and then you're going home and you're doing, whatever, and it's done. But when, we're doing it for ourselves, we have to face our demons, and we have to kind of like look at it all and, accept it all, and then say, okay, what is okay? What is not? What do I want to keep? What do I want to change? Yeah. What's serving me? What's not? I mean, that's
exactly. So you hit it right on the head.
Yeah. It's cool though. I mean, it's a cool journey. I don't know. I mean, I never thought that I had the entrepreneurial spirit, but then when I look back at every job I ever had, I was like, I shouldn't have been working for anybody like that. I just shouldn't have been. So now, the clients that you're working with now they're in a different echelon. They're like kind of starting out. They're not like, finishing up or getting ready to finish up.
Yeah. So a lot of the people I'm working with now are, they've gotten momentum in their business. They've kind of, they've built things, they're getting traction. A lot of them they're making money. They're getting really close, if not already hitting, their first 100K. And what I find is a lot of them were like, oh, everything I know as a business or everything that's being fed to me has been focused up until this point on like hitting my first 100K. And now that I'm there, nothing has changed. Actually, things actually seem a little bit harder now because I'm busier and I have less time. I have, less time to market, less time to sell. And now I have to deliver all of those things that I sold. Now I have, questions around, well, how do I build a team? How do I get support in this? Like, how can I make this easier? How can I use technology or automations to support me? And how do I run this thing like a real business, right? That's where those questions start to bubble up. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, like, we're all told like, oh, your first big milestone is 100K. And a lot of people think like they pin their hopes on that number and they think something's going to change when they hit that level. And like literally nothing has changed. Things get sometimes a lot more difficult, a lot more challenging because there is more going on in the business. And that's really where I'm working with people now where it's like, okay, let me just show you, let me tell you how to operate like a real business. Let's talk about how to really streamline and really build this foundation so that you can grow from it and not feel like you're totally drowning and overwhelmed the whole time.
Right. And I mean, and it definitely is overwhelming. I'm sorry. There's like a hummingbird flying out my window, but are you okay there, buddy? Wow. This is okay. Anyway, sorry. My ADD is taking over, but I think it's too hot and wants to come in. Anyway, sorry, buddy. So I think that, when I started my challenge, when I was talking about the challenge that I was going to be doing, one of the things that I realized when I was ready to pull the trigger on it, I didn't have the systems in place and I didn't know it until I didn't know it. And what hit was we're getting ready to do the challenge. That was when I sent you the email. I was like, we're pushing it back a couple of weeks because I was like, I have no email automation. So when somebody makes a payment, they don't get an automation. They don't get, and then there's no system in place to, keep this thing going. And it was like, oh my God, what do I do? And then it was like, there's nowhere to get a payment from somebody. And then they get what is it called? Not a link, a trigger that triggers something else to say, do the next step. So I was like, oh my God. So I got Go High Level, I got Stripe, I did, all these things. You guys can pay me later when, this comes out. They're not going to, they don't care. But I, had to put these systems in place. And when I realized that, I like literally had a meltdown because I was like, oh my God, I'm scaling. Like I am scaling right now. I am scaling. I don't have the things I need to scale. Holy shit. So I allowed myself that weekend to get the systems in place, melt down while I was getting the systems in place because it felt like this giant undertaking that I just wasn't ready for. I mean, I'm pretty tech savvy. I'm pretty, whatever, but I just wasn't ready for it. And then I did it. And then once I did it, it was almost like, ripping the Band-Aid off. But that was scary shit.
Yeah, I think we often don't know what is missing until we start to run it, until we start to operate. And then we're like, oh, nothing. No, there's no confirmation. There's no onboarding. There's no like, well, how does a person know where to join or where the Zoom links are? Like, I need them to do a little pre-work before they show up to the event. Like, how's that going to happen? There's all those things that we don't see until we're actually operational, right? Like we're trying to run it. And everything you've talked about is like, these are operating issues. It's like, okay, well, how do we deliver the thing? How do we actually run the workshop? What technology do we need? What process do we need to do that? And like, what are all the collateral materials that we need to have in place already to be able to do a build? Because like, if you look at any technology, I'm just going to put this out there, right? Because I see it's happened so many times. Like every technology piece or platform is going to say, oh yeah, it's so easy. You just like buy our platform and you get started. Actually,
easy.
There's so much collateral that you need to actually make the features and all the bells and whistles that they're promoting work. You need the templates, you need the list segments, you need the tags, you need all the context things, you need all of these things already done. I don't think people realize that. So whenever we go into one of those cycles, it feels overwhelming because we are like, oh, I thought it was going to be so easy. I thought I was going to have the thing. But it just showed me that I just have fewer things. I need to do more to be able to use this platform that I invested in. And like, I'm sorry that happened to you. And that is not uncommon at all. I've seen it happen so many times where it's just, you just don't know until you're actually operating and running that there's gaps, there's breakdowns. There's like, oh, we thought the tool was going to fix it. The tool is not fixing it. We need like a bunch of other things to make the tool work.
Right. Right.
And it just kind of cascades on itself.
But it was one of those things that I was almost glad that it happened because it kind of, catapulted me to that next step, that next level. And I knew that I'd been ready for it for a while. But I didn't know what it looked like. And then it was kind of like, when you're like sitting at the train station, and then the local train comes, the local train stops, and you get on the train, or, you're waiting for the next train. Then the express train comes, and it just kind of like blows right by you. That's kind of how I felt. I was like, wait a minute. I got to get on that train.
I wanted to be on the express train. I didn't want to be
on that train. And then the next train comes up, and it's like, okay, I have to get on this. But it was really funny because as I was going through it, Annie Ruggles like talked me off the ledge because I was just like, what do I do? And not what do I do as far as the ops and the automations and all that. I knew what I had to do, but it was just like, holy crap, I'm here now. Not expecting to be there. So it was just a really weird, a weird feeling, but and then, like I said, I let myself go through all the feels because you can't, you have to let yourself feel it. I went through it Monday morning. I was like, okay, we're done. Let's go. And then it just, everything started getting into place, but it was daunting, man. It was just like, whoa, this is what you have to do. Okay. That's why when I get an email, that's how that works.
Yeah.
Like everything started making sense that I was just like, oh, okay, that happens. Oh, this is how that happens.
Exactly. Right. And I will just say, like, this all kicked off, like building the business I wanted kicked off from like part of the healing journey. And I was like, oh yeah, like a lot of the mindset work. It's like at every level, you will be challenged as an entrepreneur. You will have another mindset challenge, mindset block. Like it's everything reverts back. Like this is going to be your ultimate challenge, right? You can learn the automations, you can learn the tech, you can learn the system, you can learn how to do the marketing, all of that stuff. But you always will be at every level continuously challenged by yourself. And that's something that I've learned as well, is like, I am my biggest challenge in this business.
I think we're all always works in progress. Always. Because I don't care what level you're at. I don't care if you have like a multi-7-figure, business, whatever. If you have like a 6-figure business, it doesn't matter, because we're always growing. We're always, learning lessons, right? There's not mistakes. If you don't learn from it, it's a mistake. But if you learn from it, it's a lesson. And I just feel like, there's always a lesson. It's like every day it's something new. I don't think I have had one day where something new didn't pop up, and not bad, not something bad, but it's something new and something different. That was like, hello, let's welcome into my world. Let's see how, this is supposed to fit in.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's, if you're, what I've seen, is that when there's too much change, some people just shrivel and they're done. They're like, yeah, this isn't for me. And they go on. And I think there's like, look, entrepreneurship, it is not for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not for the weak of heart.
It is certainly not. I mean, if you got into entrepreneurship just because you're like, oh, I want to make money, I mean, you're in the wrong business. Like corporate is a lot easier. You just want to make money.
And have insurance and have vacation time and, not have to worry about shit when you're not there. Yeah. Yep. So, okay. So we kind of know what made you leave corporate, but what was like that moment where you were just like, okay, I'm done?
I think it kind of the same. I think kind of the same way, like when I had my agency and I built it, like, we're in the multi-6 figures. We were working with some great clients. Like it just, at a certain point, I'm like, I'm not having fun here. Is this all that there is? Like, and I felt the same way right before I left corporate, where I'm like, is this all that there is? Like by every success measure, like I have the title, I'm making the money, like I have the respect of my peers, like my job isn't that hard. Like, I mean, everything seems to be working, right? So why? But I felt like dissatisfaction in my own life, where I'm like, is this really all that there is? Like, is this all that I have to look forward to? Like that 3 weeks of vacation, PTO time that I have every year, that's all I have to look forward to between now and like, retirement? Oh, what a drag, right? Whereas like, I was just found that I was dissatisfied with the life that I was leaving, and like the fact that like I'm not being fulfilled here. Like I felt like I had won the game. I'm like, I know exactly what's happening here. I know how to play the game with these people. Like there's not a challenge here left for me. And either I just get happy and like, oh, like, all right, I accept this level and this every single day between now and retirement, or I do something different. And I chose to do something different, right? And like, I won't say that that was like an easy or a fast decision. It literally took me probably 18 months to work through that and become okay and even broach the idea of like starting my own business. It was something I was like, well, maybe I need a different job. Maybe like I just need to have more hobbies outside of the office, things like that. And it was really a process for me to get to a place where it's like, okay, I'm doing this thing. And I will say that was probably the biggest catalyst. I was like, I just felt like, I was like, ugh, like a little apathetic about my life, corporate, right?
What was going on. Yeah.
And I couldn't and I was like trying all these things to try and figure it out and like get happy in what I had. And I was like, okay, this is not working. Like, obviously I want something else. So let's go for it. Let's see what happens.
Well, yeah. And I think apathetic is like the perfect word, right? You just get to that point that you're just like, who cares
Yeah.
about anything that, that I'm doing? And yeah, that's a really empty, right? It's like an empty feeling. So there are people listening to us that are thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. Silly people. What's some advice that you would give to somebody who is thinking about becoming an entrepreneur?
I would say be prepared to do more work on yourself than you realize, right? Because the actual technical side of like, marketing, running a business is actually not that hard, but you would be surprised in how many ways you sabotage yourself or you stop yourself from showing up because you don't want your friends or your family members on social media to see you, or like, you're not clear enough on like what you're actually doing outside of like, I just want to make more money, to really pursue it. Right. So those are things that I think like, if you are not prepared to have those deeper conversations, ask yourself some hard questions, it's going to be really challenging. Right. Because like I don't think you will even see, or you won't even be maybe aware enough to know that, oh, wait, this is actually me not showing up. Right. This is actually me not wanting to market, not wanting to sell. This is actually me not like believing I can do this or sell this thing. So those are like, that was something I was totally unprepared for when I started. I'm like, I'm smart. I've raised hedge funds. I've worked with multi-million-dollar companies every day, billion-dollar companies every day. I tell everyone what to do. How could I not be successful at this? Oh yeah, let me tell you, I was humbled. Like, I was very, very humbled in that first year of my business where I'm like, what's happening here? And I'm like agonizing over like a post on Facebook, and I'm trying to like block it from being seen by like family. I'm like, wow, oh my God. Like, I mean, I literally did all of those things where it was like, I just didn't want to show up, or like it came down to it. Somebody was asking me what I was selling, and like I didn't feel good telling them, or like, well, what do you charge? And I'm like, what do you want to pay? Like, so all of those things, like, where I was like, wow, I'm not showing up for myself. I'm not showing up for this business. And it, like, I needed to do that in order for us to actually really be successful. And that's where I think you mentioned before, where it's like there's a lot about you and a lot of introspection that goes into entrepreneurship. So that was probably the biggest thing, is like, be prepared to do that work. Be prepared to ask yourself some hard questions and really dig in deep on it, because there's going to be a lot of ways that you don't even know yet that you might hold yourself back.
Yeah, that's so true. There's a saying that, women are expected to be here, and, then we have a chance or a vision to be here. But because society tells us that we're supposed to be here, that we like do the self-sabotage to get there. And one of the things, for me was that just being here, knowing I was going here, and letting myself get there. Like, I didn't shrink.
Yes.
5 years ago, I would have shrank. I would have just shriveled down and been like, oh, I don't belong there. I belong here. And, this year it's like, bring it. Let's go more. Let's keep, going, because I just have a whole different mindset on things. And because I did the work, I know what I deserve. I busted my ass to get, where I am, and I've done the work, and I'm ambitious. And if I see something, I go for it. And not ambitious in like a greedy negative way, but ambitious in that I want to keep growing, and I want to keep learning, and I want my business to grow. And I want, it's like, I hear opportunities now, and I see them where before they would just go right by, and I'd be like, what was that? Where did that go? Now it's like, I'm just drawn to them, or they're, drawn to me, however, but there's opportunity everywhere, and for everybody. I mean, for everybody. But that self-introspection is what you have to do to get to the point that you're open to it, and that you can see it.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's like, I don't think that, and we don't talk about it. I feel like it's not something you learn in corporate. It's like how to ask yourself why and like become self-aware and all that stuff. Like, no one does that in corporate. That's a part of like what you do when you're climbing the corporate ladder. So we don't know how to do that. And so it can be very jarring, like, when you are actually starting your business, like it's something I certainly wasn't prepared for. And I told you, I was like, I was really arrogant going into it. I'm like, I've been in this game for a year. There's nothing you can tell me that I already know. Like, and I was, yeah, okay, we don't have to say anything else about it. Like I was definitely very humbled.
Well, and I mean, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, because being humbled, I think, makes us humble.
Yes.
And that's when you can kind of go, okay. And if, somebody's giving you advice, it's not met with, the hell are you talking about? I learned more, yesterday than you will in your whole life, whatever.
Yeah.
There's like this sense of humbleness. And gratitude. I think that changes too. Lots of gratitude. Yeah, I've never been more grateful in my life. Like, I think I wake up every day. I'm like, thank you for, I'm grateful for waking up. I'm grateful for the opportunities. Before we go to bed, like every night, I say to Heather, I try to do it every night. Some nights I miss. I'm like, 3 things that you're grateful for that happened today. And sometimes we struggle. It's like, I'm grateful for you. No. That's a cop out. What happened today, right? That you're grateful for. Did you have, it could be anything. You had lunch with a great friend. You had a really great meeting. You learned something, what is it? And so it changed from, I'm grateful for you and the babies. I'm grateful, for our home and, that we not have the material things, but that we have the things that we have, like the, the love and the family and all that. It's like, great. That's an everyday thing. Really dig deep. And it's sometimes, it's like, okay, having to think about that, I think humbles us too. It's like, wow, we have a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something like, I know that I have to practice every day, right? It's still something where like showing gratitude, like I definitely see them in the moment. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. And then, whenever things get busier or ramping up, like I'm like, oh no, I definitely go back to like my normal, like bury your head in the sand, do the thing. So I'm glad that you mentioned that because it is a good reminder and it is something that I actively have to practice on. I think you do need to work on that to get to a place where it's like snap decision. I can bring myself to that place of gratitude every time. Because for me, that's never been like the easiest thing. It's like, it's something I definitely practice every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think not everybody, but I think certain people, get to that point and we realize that, this, we worked hard to get here, but there's also our clients that, helped us get here. And like, because we didn't just get here by ourselves, if we didn't have clients, we wouldn't be here. If we didn't have the knowledge that we learned, we wouldn't be here. So there's, I think, just so many things. So I think that's kind of cool. So what do you do? You said that you have to kind of work on that every day. What do you do to work on that? Like,
so I have a pretty robust morning and evening routine to really just reset myself, right? Like, I think that when you're in business and, especially like me, like I've just gone through a very big transition. I dismantled my entire agency last year and I'm transitioning to this new thing. Like, it's really hard. Like, it's not to see when you're not seeing like constant signs of validation outside of you where you're like, oh, wait, I'm doing something different now. It's going to take me a little while. I got to build all these things. I look at our project management list, our list of to-dos in our project management tracker. And I'm like, why isn't this stuff moving faster? Why isn't this done yet? Right. And showing that impatience and like that has a tendency to like, that's like a trigger for me where I will start to like wind myself up. So every morning I have to consciously like reset my energy to really focus in on what's happening right. What are all the great things that I have in my life, right? So, I always start every morning with some sort of movement, so like move my body, whether it's something vigorous or some days I'm like, I just feel like I really need a lot more stretching and a lot more like slow flowing movement. So some form of movement to like kind of move any like dense energy. I'm someone who like, I feel my emotions and I feel like things that happen like in my body, they get stuck there. So I have to like be able to move that out. So I do it every morning, some sort of movement. Being able to journal on like what is bothering me, what do I feel like what am I catastrophizing right now in my mind, right? Being able to write that out earlier in the morning is something that really helps me. Tapping to kind of clear my energy. I'm a big fan of EFT tapping. If you don't tap with Brad, like he's all over the YouTube, you get on it, like he will like he's like the tap daddy. Like I love tapping. It really like centers my energy and like gives me clarity and focus throughout the day. I do a little bit of meditation, like not a long time, like 10-15 minutes, just to like calm and settle myself. And then I go into like, okay, well, what are the like I have a journaling practice in the morning. So outside of like the big things that are bothering me or things I'm concerned about, like what are the 3 things I need to get done today? The biggest 3 things I need to get done. What are 3 things that I'm so thankful for right now? What will I do if I am triggered today? And then also like I have a little bit of a money practice where I'm like, okay, well, how will I thank money today if it shows up for me? And that all happens like before that's why I don't start working until like 11 o'clock in the morning. Like I gotta go to the gym, I gotta like meditate, I gotta do tapping, I gotta do all like I have to have breakfast. It's like I like to have like a slow build into the day. So I definitely set up my schedule so that I can accompany all of these things. I know that it's a lot, but these are things for me that really set me off on a good note. And like I just listed a lot of things, but like in reality, if I just sat there and did it, like if I were to do like short meditation, short tapping, it would take me maybe 35 minutes to do the whole thing, if that.
Right. Interesting. And I don't have any kind of like, I don't journal. And I know it's like my mindfulness coach will be like, so did you journal this week? No.
Yeah. It's like, it's something you have to get into, right? Like I didn't journal for a long time either. I didn't understand it. Like I didn't get it. And then I started to do it. And then something happened where I was like, oh, I do like this. I do feel better after I do this. And it was like once in a while. And then it became more prevalent and more prevalent and more prevalent. And then I did it. And then I'm like, oh, I don't feel good when I don't do it. Like when I have too much stuff floating around in my head, like I don't feel good then. So let me just get it all out on paper. I feel so confused about like kind of what I want to do here. Like I can't see it. Well, and then I start to write it out. I'm like, oh, now I see it. Right. So it's like I started to shift from like, oh, okay, I do feel like I need this for when I don't feel good to like I don't feel good when I don't do it.
Wow. So I think the thing is just do it, right? I mean, I
would just say like I only did it when I didn't feel good. When I'm like I felt anxious or stressed out or like really wound up, I would do it then. And I found that I felt better. So I would only do it in those moments. And then slowly it became like more and more and more. And then I got to the point where it was like, oh, I only feel good when I am able to do this, when I can journal, when I can like do my morning routine. I feel really, really good.
And so I used to, do you hear that? I don't know if you heard that.
Your doggy?
Oh, yes, my doggy, who's like, go lay down. So I journaled probably, I don't know, 10 years ago. And I had this journal that had like replaceable, inserts and I still have it. And I stopped. And I don't know why I stopped, because I looked back on it probably like a month ago and it was from like, 2013. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. And then, so I told Diane that, and she said, so what do you think would happen if you start journaling now and you look at it 10 years from now?
I think
that's fair, right? Fair point.
You probably have some interesting stuff about yourself.
There was some interesting stuff in there. So, my goal is to, at some point during the day, when I have a break or, make the time for it. And I know it should be like when I wake up or, in the morning, but I can't do it when I wake up because that loud squeak that you heard, there's 2 of those. As soon as like I roll over and, like turn the alarm off, they're on the bed. And they're like, love us, kiss us. And I can't be like, hey, I'm going to journal, because they'll eat my book. So I have to do it when, I get here, whatever time that is. So I need to kind of probably start working on that, because I think it'll be interesting, especially now, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I will say that like when I started this practice, like I used to do it at night, right? Because my mornings felt very full because I was establishing all these new morning routines. So I started doing it in the evenings. And then it just shifted, right? Like it's like my evenings now have different routines in them. And so I was like, oh, okay, so I can move this into the morning and it like it doesn't feel as like daunting or like doesn't feel like so much. So like I do think that like it goes with your seasons and like what really works for you. Like sometimes it does. You're right. It literally doesn't work to do in the mornings. That's how I felt before, and like I used to do it in the evenings. And then things switch with like what's going on with your life, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right because what works maybe now may not be the thing that works like in.
And who knows? By the time like the end of this year, like when I get back from traveling, like maybe I will want to do it in the evenings again, right? Maybe that's when it will happen. And I was like, okay, well, I'm open to that too. Like we'll see what happens.
Well, and as long as you're open to it, right? I mean, so, um, so there are obviously seasoned, entrepreneurs listening to us. What are some, or what's an obstacle, right, that you've had to overcome, that somebody might be going through now?
So, wow. Okay. I would say probably the biggest one was myself, where I wasn't showing up. But the other piece was like really learning how to market, right? Like that's a place where it's like you think you know how to do it until you actually have to do it.
Right.
And there's a lot of technicalities, there's a lot of, nuance to it that you don't really consider, you literally don't know about unless you're working in marketing, right? So a lot of business owners out there, if they're not working in marketing, there are things that they just don't know about. Oh, well, now we're trying to leverage social media. Now Facebook isn't about me posting cute baby pics. This is about me like leveraging it for my business. How do I do that? And like making that transition. Those were things where it's like, I just did not know how to do it. And those are places where I definitely looked for support because I was like, I don't know how to do this. Like, what am I supposed to post here? What makes sense here? And down to some of the foundational things that I didn't actually learn until later on. Like I will say I probably did it maybe a little bit backwards. For me, that's how it just happened. Like where I learned the technical side of marketing first, right? Like here's what the structure is. Like here's what you're going to use platform for. Here's how you're going to build funnels, and here's what the automation should really look like. But I didn't learn some of the foundational stuff like around messaging and positioning in your content until much later. Whereas like, oh, okay, you need both, and sometimes it is not a very linear journey for how you get it. Because I do remember when I was in one of the first big group coaching programs I was in, they were talking about lead magnets. They were talking about writing copy and the content, but I didn't understand. Like I could see what they were saying, but I'm like, I don't understand how this applies to me. So I didn't do it very well until I could see the full big picture and like understand like, oh, these are the results I want to get. This is how the technical side and here's how the creative side all fits together. And so I think that is a big obstacle that people don't even realize. It's like, the people are going to ask you things about like, well, what's your offer? What's the positioning? What's the messaging for it? And you're going to give them like kind of a surface level response. And you're not even going to know that it needs to be deeper than that, right? You're not going to know like it needs to be put together in a different way. Because everyone's like, oh, well, I will just send emails or I will do like, content marketing. And here's like the 10 trends that are on Instagram or like Threads or whatever. And they don't realize it's like, oh, this is stuff that I need to work on, like in terms of like my offer, in terms of my messaging, in terms of like how I position myself. This is about my brand. This is about all these other things that like I didn't even know the answers to those questions because I hadn't done enough in my business yet, right? So I think that is an obstacle that is like coming. And it's one I don't think you can avoid. It's just something you can be aware of. Because like I don't think that you can even if I were to ask somebody right now, it's like, well, what is your why? What is your value? What are your values? Like, how are you going to differentiate yourself? I don't think they would be able to answer me in a way that would really stand up in the market until they've gone through and done a little bit in their business, right? So that's something that I think people are just not aware of. Like, well, like I'm checking all the boxes, but I don't understand why it's not working. Well, because you have to do a little bit of that, do some trial and error to really come to the foundational pieces that you need to really grow a business.
Right. And it's true. Marketing, it's funny because as a marketing agency, I never thought that I would need help marketing in like a million years. But at the end of the day, we're so busy helping our clients that we don't have time to market ourselves. Like we don't even think about it. So now I have like a little fractional CMO that I'm working with who, helps me with my messaging and all of that stuff. And it's so different now because a year ago, 2 years ago, never even thought of it. And then, we post on LinkedIn, we post on Facebook. Are you on Threads?
No, I'm not a fan of Threads. I don't like that Twitter style.
I didn't do it. Yeah, I didn't do it.
I was like, you know what? I will just meet you guys all back here when the algorithm pushes you back here. I'll just wait. Go ahead.
I mean, 100%, because I had like a few, entrepreneurs that I know are like, yeah, I'm on Threads and I'm kind of digging it. And I'm like, I'm not going to meet you there.
Yeah. I'll meet you back here because I know you're going to come back here. Don't worry.
I said, I'm
not worried.
No, I don't know. They're always trying to do all these like different, things. And it's like, okay, whatever. I'm just going to stick with, the three that I know and it seems to work. But marketing is really important. And I think a lot of businesses, that's the one thing that they won't spend money on. And that's the one thing that's going to get them out in front of the people that they need to be in front of. And, as a marketer, it makes me insane because I'll sit down with a client or a prospective client and, you're like, well, why do I want to work with you? And it's like, if you don't know why you want to work with me, then we probably shouldn't work together. I mean, I'm not here to convince anybody. I had somebody tell me, you need to position it a little bit differently so that you can make that sale. And it's like, that's not what it's about for me.
Yeah.
If I can't help you, then I can't help you. If you don't know why you need marketing, I can give you I can guide you to a couple of things, but I'm not going to beat you over the head with it. If you don't want it, if you don't think it's for you, then, next. And I don't mean next, like, next number, but I mean like next so that you're out of the way so that you leave room for the people who actually need me and who I can actually help. Because that's what it's for. For me, one of my biggest whys besides, family is, I want to help people. That's why I got into business. And if you don't want help, I can't make you want help. I can't do it. I used to try. Why don't you need me? You don't love me. You don't want me. And then I realized it wasn't about me. And I think as soon as I realized that it wasn't me, that was a game changer.
Yeah. And so I think that okay, so I have a couple of things because I know that marketing is one of those places where it's like, I've certainly seen it and I've certainly thought it myself where I'm like, why do I need marketing? Like, I already know how to do, because I think there's a certain level of accessibility. Like, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I know how to do this thing. And I think that's what people don't realize. It's like, oh, wait a second. There's very big difference between I post cute memes and I'm using this for my business as a tool. So I've definitely been in that bucket before. So I definitely have seen it and I understand it. Like, oh my God, I would never be without a marketing support now. Just because it's like, oh, I know there's a lot of things that I don't know. It's not, there's just so many things that change if you're right. So it's like, I definitely know that is a place that I've seen a lot of people are like, I know how to do this. I know how to use Instagram. I don't need you to show me how to do it. And so that is something that I see people are really challenged by. And on the other side of things, I forgot the other point I was going to make. I just want to edit that out.
That's okay. I mean, we're real here. Look, I was talking about hummingbirds before. I want to make sure.
Yeah, I was like, oh, wait a second. I forget what I wanted to say. What was the last thing you said?
So we were talking. Are you even kidding me now? Oh, we were talking about why we need marketing, and you were talking about how, well, I was talking about how I'm not forcing anybody. If they don't, think they need it, they don't need it. And you were saying that, of course, you need marketing support because.
Yes. I literally don't remember what I'm going to say about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think marketing is a very important tool. I think most people are not good at it unless they already have a background in this, and they're not good at it when they go into their business. So it's definitely where I could see a lot of people needing more support than they actually believe they need. And that convincing thing, that is something that when it's not about you, right? I think that is a big shift.
Yes.
When you're in corporate, it's oh, my boss needs to tell me I'm doing a good job. My performance evaluation tells me I'm doing a good job. My bonus tells me I'm doing a good job. And when you're actually in your business, you might not see those same milestones, or you might be waiting for someone to congratulate you on doing something. Like, you put up really good, great job. Or you like did the thing you were supposed to do. Great job. Like, you don't get that same validation in your own business. So if you don't feel like you're like, oh yeah, I got this, I'm enough on my own, and you're like waiting for like the praise to come so that you can feel good that you're running your business, like that is like a place that I would just invite everyone to look and shift, because that's something that I know personally has helped me back, where I was like constantly waiting for the outside validation. And like your business is actually can be kind of a lonely place in that way, where there's no one like constantly patting you on the back, like when you're in corporate, or telling you how great you are, or, you know, what an amazing job you did on that project, or whatever it is. It has to be fueled inside of yourself. And if you don't have that, that is something that is an obstacle or a challenge that might hold you back in a lot of ways. Like, I know I've certainly been in that position where I was like, no one is telling me how is this working? Is my business okay? Like, no one is telling me I'm doing a great job.
Oh, are we Bible? It's funny because I've been getting a lot of recognition online. Like, I've had people say really nice things about me, and I mean, I'm not used to it. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not used to seeing it in writing. And Fabienne wrote this like amazing post. We did a video about the challenge, and so she did this post, and I'm like reading it and crying, and because it was just like, wow, that really is freaking me. I mean, that's me. And so of course, I tell my wife, and I'm like, hey, look at this post. And she was like, yeah, okay. I'm like, this is a big fucking deal. What do you mean? Yeah, okay. And she's like, it's nothing I don't know. And I went, what? But this is a big deal to me. Can you jump up a little, like be a little excited with me, And then I realized that, I went from, thinking that it was all about me, that they didn't like me, they didn't whatever, that it was all about me. But like in the reverse, and at the end of the day, yeah, it's about us. But, you're right. When we get that validation, it's amazing, because sometimes we don't. The best thing that somebody said to me, which was also kind of a shifter for me, was about 2 years ago. I was giving, locally, I give out Christmas presents to the local clients. And so I went into a shop, and I, go to hand him a gift, and he comes out with this like giant basket, and he goes, here, Merry Christmas. And I went, why are you giving? You don't have to give me anything. And he goes, it's not lost on me what you do. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, your efforts on behalf of my business helps my guys put food on their table. And you talk about an aha moment. It went from so humbling to, oh my God, to, oh my God, if I don't do this right, they're not going to eat. You know what I mean? And it put things in a whole different frame for me, because it then became, I always want to see my clients' business grow. I always care about them, but now I'm feeding people. Like, that never even crossed my mind. So then it added another level on why I do what I do. But that was like such a, it was like a really amazing, validating moment, but it was also holy shit, now I have a lot of pressure on myself moment. So
I think there are a lot of moments like that are both that are like great and also terrifying as an entrepreneur, right? So I think that, like, I would probably say that is probably the most common recurring thing, is like, wow, there's so many amazing highs, and they're usually tied to like some terrifying or like horrific low. No, that's not true. Horrific is like the wrong word, but some sort of like, oh, that wasn't what I expected, or something like unexpected or uncertain. You're like, okay,
yes,
and you've got to get used to that. Like, oh, this is how things work. Okay, got it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, but it completely, shifted my perspective. It was like, oh my God, it's my copywriter writes this copy, and it's not compelling enough, and it doesn't keep people on, his website, they're going to go to somebody else and his guy isn't going to get fed. So this has to be like the best copy that's out there. This has to be, so everything just became, it honestly, it made me level up even more because everything became that much more important, that it wasn't just like, I'm helping people market. It's like, I'm helping people market. It just, added a whole different inflection onto it, I guess, as Catherine Morales would say, inflection point. That's really what it became. So, so what's your differentiator? I mean, like, why would, somebody choose you? I mean, I know why, somebody would choose you, but.
Well, I mean, obviously, because like I'm super cool and I'm really fun, and like who doesn't want to hang out with me? Like, come on. I would say the thing that differentiates me from a lot of what happens in the market is that, like, especially within the operations field, there's probably two big camps. One is just like straight up coaching templates. Here's the course, and the other camp is like, we'll just do it for you. There's nothing really in the middle, right? So that is the thing that's actually really different about me, is that like I'm here to help you in the interim phase, right? Like, yeah, I'll tell you the answer right now so you can move forward today, but I will also tell you why, because you're probably going to have to make another operating decision around your tech, your team, your systems, your leadership, how you're going to do things, how you're going to operate around your business. You're going to have to do that again. So let me give you a little bit of training and understanding of why, but I won't leave you hanging. I will tell you how to fix the challenge today. And I think that that is something that I have not seen anywhere in the operations field, right? And that's what I think is really compelling, is that like, yeah, like I'll tell you the answer today so you can move forward. But also I want you to understand how and why we came to this decision, because I guarantee you, you will have to make another operating decision, whether it's tomorrow, the day after that, a year from now, you're going to have to do it again. And you want to be prepared for that, because there's not always going to be like a, COO in your business, and you're still the expert in your business. Like, even if you were to outsource everything and hire the most experienced consultants, they are not the people who know your business. You are the expert. You still have to guide them. You still have to lead them. You still have to be the person that like makes the decision, right? And if you have no, like my eyes are closed, I can't even see the decision. I can't even see what what the parameters are. Then you're always going to be kind of in this position where you're like a little bit behind in your business. Like, it's going to be really hard to let things go. It's going to be really hard to evolve and grow if you can't shift into that spot. So that's what makes me really different, is that like, yeah, I want to make sure you have what you have today, what you need today to really move forward. But I also want you to like have the knowledge to be a good leader and to be able to make this decision, to understand enough about your operations to make the decision again next time, because you're going to have to do it, right? And I don't want you to be dependent on someone outside of your business forever, right? Like that is a place where it's like, okay, like it's really hard to operate in that way over the long term. It gets very expensive, it becomes very cumbersome, and eventually your visions for how things happen are going to dissect. And then you're in another bad situation where like, okay, now I need to find another person to feed me all the answers. And that I've never seen that work in the long run. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. And, I think that it's like you give people the tools to be able to, go on and grow. Right. And that's a big thing. It's like, this is going to be a hell of a comparison, but, picture like, excuse you. Did you hear that? It's like, oh, like Scooby-Doo. What are you, Scooby-Doo now? But it's like, a homeless shelter that has like a transition, right? And the transition is, okay, you were homeless and now you're here. And instead of doing everything for you, here are the tools that you need to go on and, be successful and all that. And I use that because there's a homeless shelter in, New York that I used to be homeless when I was 19 and whatever, but they grew into this like, behemoth, and they were able to do that, to give people the tools. And that's what I kind of equate this to, is that, you're showing them how, you're guiding them, and you're giving them the tools to be able to do it on their own, when the next thing comes up. So I think that's pretty freaking awesome.
Thank you. I think so too. Yeah. And I think like your description is very apt. So yes, thank you for that.
You're welcome. I mean, it's, at the end of the day, it like you said, like therapy. I remember I was in therapy like, years ago, and I was going through something, and my therapist said, so what do you think? And I said, no. You got to, like, what do you think I should do? that's what I'm paying you for. You need to tell me what to do. She goes, no, you're paying me so that because the answer is in you. I can help you figure it out and then help you, go on. And so that's basically, it's the same thing. You're empowering people and giving them the tools so that when the next thing happens, they're equipped for it.
Yeah. And I will say that I will tell you what to do. Like that, I think that there's a lot of customization in that because like I don't want to leave anyone with like, oh well, it's whatever you think or whatever you need. There are some points I think, especially in running a business, that you need to be told what to do because you don't know, right? Like I definitely had coaches who were like, well, what do you feel about that? Well, I'm like, I don't know. I need you to tell me so I can like do the thing and form an opinion. And so that is where it's like, you know what? I will also tell you what you should do right now based on everything I know about your business, based on what I know about your goals, based on what I know about where you want to go and what you currently have in place. I will tell you what I think the best option for you is right now so that you don't stay stuck in this place, right? And then, like you said, like giving you the tool set so that you can replicate this again and again and again in the future because you're going to have to. Like that is a fact of being in business. Like you're in charge of the operating decisions and you got to know how to make decisions. If you don't know how to make decisions, I mean, look me up. Let me help you.
Right. So where can people find you?
I hang out primarily on Instagram now, so you can find me at Diane Lamb, LAM as in Mary.co. On Instagram, that's where you see all of my travel pics. That's where you see all of the cute pictures of my nephews, all the foods that I'm eating, all the delicious cocktails I'm imbibing on. You can see all that stuff there, as well as get like some of the tips, the tricks, some of the growth foundational hacks that you really need to support your operations to grow further, right? Like, and sometimes, this is who you need if you're making this amount of money. These are probably the 2 members that you need. Use it as a starting point. Go from there. But I hang out there, slide into my DMs, let me know if you have a question. If I can answer it, I will just tell you the answer.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. It's like over an hour. It goes so fast. But talking to you always goes fast. So, the last question that I ask all my guests is, what lights your fire?
What does light my fire? I think for me, it is that freedom for myself, but also in helping my clients create that, right? So, marked difference, I think something that like I realized was very, very different was when I was working with the bigger clients and when I'm working with people who are still kind of like in their growth phase where I'm like, I get so much freaking satisfaction when I'm working with a newer business owner. They're like, oh my God, I've been trying to figure out that tech thing for like 6 months. And you literally just told me how to fix it right now. Oh my God, how did I not know that? That I feel so good. I'm like, wow, I really helped you do something amazing today. I really helped change the way that your life is. I really helped change the trajectory of your business today. Oh my God. Wow. Thank you for letting me guide you in that. So that gets me excited. And something that is like, I find that I'm chasing more and more is that satisfaction, that fulfillment from being able to help the people who just really need help to be able to, like they need a couple of tweaks. They need a few answers to really be able to take off like rocket fuel.
I love that. That is so awesome. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience. I can't talk today. I'll be right back. So, okay. Everybody, thank you so much for hanging out for an hour, then, over an hour and listening to me, freak out about the hummingbirds and the puppies and all the things and the distractions today. But I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. I know there were a bunch of great nuggets today. You know what? Share them with people that you think could learn from them. Look Diane up. Again, she's on Instagram, dianelam.co. And appreciate all of you. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, go out and find what lights your fire. See you.